Welcome everyone to the Engineer Whisperer podcast on transitioning, and today with the focus to transitioning into a director role. And I want to welcome my guest today, Peter. Peter, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Andrea.
Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a transplant. So grew up in Munich, Germany, with a degree in industrial engineering and business. So a little bit of a different story there to tell, but ultimately made my way to the US. It's always been a dream of mine to move and prove myself in a completely different setting, different country, everything. And have been working in different fields for about 20 some years now. So love every minute of it. Love the challenge and would like to tell you a little bit about my challenge and my journey.
Oh, I'm so curious. Can't wait to ask you questions. Had a, I guess, a similar start of life too, from a different country, and always was curious about the world and how is to see it and live somewhere else. So, welcome. So let's jump right in. I'm so curious. Tell me about your transition into a director role. Maybe start with what came easy to you.
Right. So if you are a collaborator and you like team building, you love dynamic environments, then it is a little bit easier to lean into this organizational change. I personally leaned into it through teams and team building and connecting, collaborating with executives, understanding culture and companies and different nooks and crannies as you transition from maybe an individual contributor level to now director of people, director of directors. That's a completely different ballpark. So that came easy. I felt that it actually was really fulfilling to be exposed to different nuances of the business and then understanding how each business ticks, and understanding the mechanics of the collaboration, how people network in the company, how they work behind the scenes. There's obviously the what I would call the organization as it stands, but then there's the hidden workplace, right, where the real work is and the real action is. And once you get that concept, it is a little bit easier to manage, right? So from that end, those soft things were easy for me to get into, for
Where did
sure.
you find that concept, that hidden work?
I blame my professors mainly for that. I was fortunate to have a really good set of mentors during my time at the university. My degree helped me understand a little bit better because it's not a purebred engineering degree. It was a mix between business and industrial engineering. And so that really helps you kind of navigate both, as well, the hard and the soft side. And that to me was very helpful. And I always had an interest as well in organizational development, change management, and did a ton of reading through different outlets, right? Harvard Business Reviews and so on. So that helped me, first of all, keep myself current, and then also always be on tippy toes, leaning into other things. And that to me was good.
So you're saying that you already did all that, call it work, as an individual contributor before you even had a leadership role?
Correct. Yes. I was
Okay.
working in individual contributor roles before and found that fulfilling, but I always wanted to do more. And people saw my talent and tapped me to grow into different roles, which at times can be a little bit daunting if you don't know what's next or you don't know what to expect. But I'm also someone who likes to challenge myself. And I always say, if you don't feel uncomfortable, you don't really learn. So I wanted to do that and just sign up for opportunities as they came up. And here we are, right? So that's how it goes sometimes.
And you got noticed, because when we have that mindset and that attitude, then people notice. So was this something, this role that you got as a director, or the first one, that you got invited into, or it was all along part of your career development plan?
It was actually both. I wanted to get to the right place, have enough experience, and exposure to the business before I was signing up for another role. I was actually tapped a couple of different times and did some soul searching. And then when I personally felt the time was right, I made the move. And it was the right decision at the end of the day for me to do that.
Would you tell us more? Because I think a lot of people struggle with this concept, the right
Yeah,
time. And
yeah.
I know we're all unique and it's all unique to our lives, but what, maybe share a little bit about the decision and the right timing. How did you know that that was for you?
Right. So I'm someone who believes very strongly in continuous improvement and the step ladder concept of improving something, then you're plateauing a little bit, and then you move on again. And so when you follow that concept, it's easy to make that next move in your head and say, all right, so this is definitely the end of the plateau. I need to make another move up and get to that next level. And so that's what I really used in my head to get to that next performance level. And I network quite a bit, and that also helped me to then stay current with opportunities around me, and had a lot of encouragement from mentors, team members, that ultimately also gave me the signal to move on and to say, listen, this is enough. Get to the next level. You'll be good at this, and got some encouragement. But you really also have to do what I call the classic soul searching of what is it that I truly want, and be honest to yourself, right? And say, well, this is great right now, but I really want to get to that next level faster. And the only way to get there is to go maybe sometimes through a detour in life and take a completely different position, and then make it back to your trajectory where you want it to be. And that's how I navigate it pretty much, is to just always listen to yourself and what your passion is, and combine it. So it's not linear, right? It's sometimes a lot of detour that you go through, and at the end of the day, you make it a right call if you just listen to yourself.
So when was the beginning of this skill and this practice of soul searching, Peter? I'm
Yep.
curious.
Yep. So I was in the US about 5 years into my journey at a really good company. My mentor came around and tapped me for a couple of different opportunities and said, hey, how about you run this for a minute? And I was like, running this for a minute, this is interesting. I haven't done this before. And I did. And, I passed this test with flying colors. And then he moved on. And again, he tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, how about doing this? And involved relocating again and moving around and taking a completely different role in a different industry. And I, again, listened to myself and said, fine, I'll do it. Take a risk, move, pick up from nothing, build something from nothing. And I did that again and was successful. And so that whole movie started to just form a picture at some point, right? So it was always the same: getting tapped, soul searching, moving on, committing, going through this whole change curve of, being a little bit worried about things, not sure what you want to do with that, but then getting finally over the hump and moving into fully committing and just doing it. And I did that over the last, I'd say, 15 years of my director level career, and it really served me well. You just have to believe in yourself when you do it.
Mhm. Do you have some tools, I'm curious, that you use in this process of soul searching,
Yep.
or is it all internal?
So being an engineer, partly, right, as I lean into industrial engineering, I use a couple of tools that are pretty good to determine whether sort of the risk number one, or it's the risk management tools in general. But I usually don't overthink it. So I use just the pros and cons, a little bit of affinity mapping, right? So where my interests are, and then developing a theme out of it, right? So is it continuous improvement again that you want to get into, or is it more of an ops leadership role that you want to get into? Balancing those against each other, because sometimes you find yourself a little bit pinned down in terms of interest levels, and you want to maybe do something more um, people oriented or process oriented, whatever it might be. And so those are the tools I use, as well as just the classic feedback 360s, right? So with calling up network and just asking them tough questions about myself. You know me for that many years. Where do you think I should go next, right? And listen to other opinions when it comes to that, and that's important as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that. To have the courage to call people up and say, okay, tell me what you think about me, what you think where I would be, how much I've grown. I mean, that tells a lot about you that you kept them also in the know, in their awareness of your growth. And that's such an awesome leadership quality to let people know, okay, I'm putting all this effort into my development, but then almost like if I don't let people know, they don't know and they can't help me to then rise to the level where I want to be and reach that goal. Hmm. Oh, well, thanks for sharing. Well, let's hear about what was something challenging because we heard the easy. What was the challenging part of transitioning?
Yep. Yeah, the challenging piece is, if you look at different nuances of managing people and then managing a business, because it really comes to a point where you converge and you try to figure out how to navigate both, right? So not only do you have responsibility over people, now you also manage, KPIs, you manage scorecards, you manage a business unit, you manage maybe a series of business units. Then you have to put on a different hat and you have to learn about strategy. You have to learn about the business climate, the customer base, the supply base, maybe. And at some point, your head will to start, spinning. And that's perfectly normal. I always say it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, right? And the sooner you get that concept, the better you will be at the end of the day because you can pace yourself and you're not getting overwhelmed, right? And sometimes people talk about imposter syndrome, right? Where you get hired into something and you can
Mhm.
constantly doubt yourself because things aren't moving fast enough or things aren't happening in one shape or form. That's totally normal, right? I believe that's part of learning and growing and not getting discouraged is probably the tough part when you're brand new in a director level position. But the more business cycles you get under your belt, the better you get at that. And again, your networking skills will be important in that new environment. So it's just to make sure that you reach out for help and you get honest feedback timely. And I always say, stay close to your leaders, stay close to your team and be in the trenches. That's the key part of ultimately getting over that first adjustment period.
What was a new mindset that you had to adopt in order to adapt in this new role? Anything?
Yes, absolutely. I always say don't let perfect get in the way of better, right?
Oh,
So that
yes, that one.
yep, that was something I embraced early on in my continuous improvement days, but it's been serving me well. I use it every day, and that actually helps you align with challenges quite well. And never forget, to abandon your true north, right? So make sure that you have that true north in your head at all times,
Oh.
um, so that you stay true to your values and your company's values. And that also is something that I use every day.
So you're talking about true north as of your own personal values, and then also know what the values of the company that you're representing are, and then being true to both of those.
Correct, correct. Because the
Mm.
alignment is important, and that's
Yeah.
where an authentic leader comes through. Because to me, authentic leadership is all about believing in what it is you're doing, not only as a professional, but also as a personal, you know, uh, a human being in reality, right? That's dealing with a lot of, sometimes contradicting situations in life, and you have to navigate those. And the true answer is, are you staying, in my mind, to true north, and are you actioning against the things that you're preaching, right? So that's to me also very important as a leader when you are
Yeah.
a director level position at some point.
Peter, have you ever been in a situation where that alignment it didn't exist, or maybe temporarily didn't exist? And if you have, w- what action did you take, if anything? What did you do to
Yeah,
create the
absolutely.
alignment? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So those things typically happen when you are in situations where change is rapid, right? So you're either picking up a company that is reinventing, or it's a startup, or it's a uh, a company in change of making rapid adjustments in terms of the financials or whatnot, and you have to do some more work around alignment. And there are tools where you literally have to reinvent and go back to the drawing board. I believe in the lean tools that get you there, right? So the strategy deployment piece where you truly go and figure out what the 3 to 5 year plan is, what the annual plan needs to be, the AIP supporting it, and then the KPIs and the people who are supporting those. And that's the classic alignment piece that we addressed earlier on in this conversation, right? Where you align the strategy with people. And that's what I usually do when I get into those situations, is to just look at strategy deployment, figuring out if that is still a go, and if it's not, you reinvent. So that's where the dynamic piece comes in.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well, sound like you became skilled in relationships and creating allyships and networks. So then I can definitely see how these conversations and these kind of alignments can be kind of put back into shape because you have the skills to bring people together and to have that environment where people are willing to collaborate.
that's correct. Yes. As I always say, the soft stuff is the hard stuff, right? So it's easy sometimes to form strategy, but then to explain that and bring it all the way down to the front line, that's a different challenge in itself. And I believe good leaders at the director level can make it look seamless. And that's not easy. It's very difficult sometimes because you have to think about positions at different levels. What's in it for them? What was it that what they would like to hear, right? And how do you package it so that it becomes meaningful, it's purposeful, and it's something that resonates with hearts and minds, right? So that's typically what I also want to do as a good leader, is to make sure the message gets to the right place and the right shape, and the right package.
Yes. And I can sense that resonation with others also started with you first. It had to resonate with you, going back to the alignment of the values and the strategies and finding the purpose and meaning. And then once you had a good understanding and grip of an awareness of it, then it was easier to flow it down. Thank you. Now I'm curious, did anything surprised you in this transition? Was it was anything unexpected for you?
Yeah, so it's funny because there's a particular situation that comes to mind as you say that. When I was about 3 years into my journey as a site leader, director level, and our team did well, right? We turned a bad situation around into something really good. And one day I get a call from the CEO and he said, "Hey, I'd like to invite you to come to Chicago." And I did not know for the life of me what that invitation was all about. So I showed up, and it turns out that he had an award for me, and it was about employee engagement. And I was completely dumbfounded, right? At the time, I was just not understanding why I got the award, right?
Oh.
And it is testament to you being an authentic leader, but not getting too full of yourself, right? So it's about staying humble and holding true to being an authentic leader and serving your people, right? So servant leadership is important to me, and then getting surprised that way, to me, up to today, right? And this is now 10 years later, is still baffling how it happened. But to me, it's a lesson learned in terms of just doing a good job and not being too full of yourself, right? Don't take yourself too serious, and good things happen, right? Just to do what is best for yourself and the organization. I always put my folks first, and strive to be a servant leader. And at the end of the day, you get those kinds of things, right? So it's something that's really interesting.
It's always a good feeling in my book when when you or me, so when I give an people give back to me. Not that it's an expectation that I will receive anything, but it comes with that internal recognition of, yes, they notice. So that's more important. And it sounds like with you too, that the people noticed that you continued serving them, servant leadership, and creating those alignment. I know that having a clear picture um, as an individual contributor and seeing the the values connected to what someone does in their role, it's so important, it's so empowering. So that's what it sounds like, that you you mastered at that level, that you became very focused and aware of it and then leaned into it because it's what pays the dividends, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, never forget your roots. That's what I always say as well, is when you start out in a career and you're, maybe at an analyst position, and you learn the ropes, you feel a certain way, right? So when change happens, you constantly ask, why is that change happening? What does that mean to me, right? And you should never forget that when you get into a director level role, those feelings are real when you have responsibility over people, and that will help you as a leader to form that message properly, and also to hold yourself accountable in terms of true leadership and alignment as well. And so I never try to forget those days, and that's what keeps me honest at times.
Um, Something really got me when what you said, and let me give you some context, and I would love your experience with it. That and there's this saying that the higher you get, the lonelier it gets. Well, I'm listening to you and your story, and it sounds like the higher you get, the more people you impact, the more people you get around you. So you definitely cracked that code, and I love to bust that myth. So tell us, and maybe give us a tool. Those who are listening, they haven't done it yet. Where to start? How did you start? Tell us more.
Yeah, I believe the adage of, get the higher you get, the lonelier it is, it might be true for certain leaders. But I also believe as a leader, it's up to you to break that loneliness, right? So you have a team, you can reach out. It's important for you to not isolate. And when difficult decisions are being made, that's one thing. And sometimes you carry that burden as a leader, but there's nothing in the book that says you can't reach out, you can't get different opinions, you can't work with your team to form those opinions, get fact-based decision making underway, which in my mind is never just one person. There's a series of steps that you need to take as a leader to get to really good decision making at the end of the day, and it's hardly just you. And so I believe in again putting all the facts on the table, doing good analysis around data, business climate, and so on, to really get a well-rounded picture of what it is we're trying to solve. And typically, it's being done in a team environment where you problem solve. And being a strong CI-minded person, that's usually what I fall back into, is the typical problem-solving setting where you put a team in a room and there are no titles in the room, right? So you're just going through cracking the problem and going hard after the process that's broken or in need of being fixed. And at the end of the day, that's ultimately fulfilling. And at the end of the day, it's you carrying that decision as a leader, but it's supported by the team. It's supported by a broader group of people, and that will make the solution even more sustainable. That's typically how I navigate those things. But I heard that sentiment before. I just don't believe in it necessarily.
Thank you for saying that. It's so important for for all of us, and I'm including myself too, to remind myself of what I believe in. Because there's all these words and sentences and sayings out there that doesn't mean that they fit me and that they need to be mine. I can just leave them alone and choose to say no to them, and then choose to say yes to the beliefs that I believe in. Like you said, that I believe I don't have to do it. I don't have to isolate myself. So thank you for saying that. I hope that that inspires some folks who are listening to have the courage to put some of the beliefs down that maybe they are carrying, and to start fresh, start differently.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's part of growing too, right? So yeah, ultimately have to find your own path. But a path shared with someone else is always easier to walk, right? And that's how I see that.
Yes. It's so much fun too. Just like having doing this by myself wouldn't be as fun as asking you a lot of questions. So, yes. Now let's pivot. What about a transition that you're going through right now? Would you like to share?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm about to work for myself again. I've done this before where, I have periods of growth and then you go back into what really makes me tick. Is there something else I could be doing? And so I'm thinking about going back into consulting a little bit and branching out to my network to ultimately pick up a couple of different and interesting projects that I could do over the next couple of years. I have family members as well who embarked on the same journey, right? So some of them were at the VP level and they led consulting agencies and now they're into fractional management or fractional roles. Completely different concept from me, but I found it interesting. So I'm going to try it out and see how that works. But yeah, it's part of life. Sometimes you just have to keep it interesting, and it's yeah, I'm curious to see what happens next.
It definitely fits in with your theme of continuous improvement and learning.
Yeah.
So, what's something challenging and maybe right now fearful that you're looking at that you think of, like, oh, I'm afraid of that? Is there anything?
You're always curious to see how the market responds, right? So right now I'm in the business planning stage to understand what's out there and see how the market is accepting of someone like me reaching out. So it can be scary at times when you go from a fairly stable environment into a completely entrepreneurial based environment, and that can be rewarding. So I'm more or less thinking about the good part of being an entrepreneur again and testing that new concept out. So we'll see how it tests out, and at the end of the day, I think it's a rewarding experience.
And as a good engineer, I'm sure you have a backup plan, or maybe two backup plans. So a fallback plan and another backup plan.
Yes, there's always plan
Right?
B, plan B, and plan C and plan D, and I'm
Yes.
sure I'm sure I'll be somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, there's calculated risks. I think those are the fun ones. Most people think that there's only one kind of risk, which is the uncalculated. Just go all in and don't know what's going on. Uh, when I discovered this concept of calculated risk, I fell in love with it. Like, yes, tell me more. How can I do this?
Yes, absolutely. And in the Kaizen world or in the continuous improvement world, that's pretty much all you do when you try storm, you figure out a better way, and you always take a risk because it might not work out the way you think it will. But I would say eight out of 10 times, you'll end up in a better place, and that's what counts at the end of the day. So, if you don't take any risks in life, you usually don't find yourself in a better place, right? So it's one of those chicken or the egg conversations, right? So I
Yes.
believe in change for the better, and I'm sure there is always a better somewhere. And
Well, there's always then a way to make it happen. When we believe in it, it manifests itself. That happened to me so many times. So it comes with that internal belief. And then you follow with actions, and the universe just conspires to give you what you want. It might not be the way you wanted it, let's be honest. But can we argue if it gives it to you better? Like, that's not
yeah, I
the
mean,
point.
I learned early on in my life that yeah, you have to have a dream and you have to follow it. And you believe in it strong enough, there's always that door opening at some point. When I left Germany, everyone called me crazy, right? My friends, my family, everyone is completely out there saying, nope, there's no way in heck you can make it on your own. And here we are, right? So it happened. And now everyone is looking over my shoulder and is super proud of what I accomplished. And at the end of the day, that's what makes you strong as a person. Is just the belief that you can do it, and you have the resilience to do it. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. You've done something different, and not maybe according to a playbook that someone lined up for you, or a plan in life that someone else put in place for you, but some path that you lined up and you follow, and you can be proud of it.
I can hear that proudness in your voice. Thank you very much for sharing. And to close our conversation, if someone got inspired and wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn, but I also have email to connect. So my email is roderpa@gmail.com.
Well, thank you very much, Peter, for taking the time to sit down with me and share your experience with me, with the audience. I really appreciate it. And keep me posted on your continuous transition. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrea.